The original Klasse was a premium compact made by Fujifilm in 2001, well after the premium compact craze of the early 90s. With an f2.6 38mm lens, it was originally pitched as an affordable, aperture priority premium compact camera, aimed at women, travelers, and camera enthusiasts. With reversal film being very prevalent at the time, Fuji touted the Klasse's ability to take beautiful color photos of flowers, food, gardening, etc. The light compact nature would make it great for snapshots when traveling or just walking around, while still producing a high quality image enough for enlarging. And with a classic design and only the necessary functions of a camera, enthusiasts would also enjoy the Klasse. Often overshadowed by the second iteration's cult status, is the original worth a shot? Does it stack up against other premium compacts and its closest competitor, the Contax T2? f2.6 aperture, manual focus, and an aperture priority mode sound like an excellent combination for any 35mm compact camera enthusiast. With a somewhat friendlier price tag to its later iterations as well as the Contax, while offering a faster aperture, why look anywhere else? I bought the Klasse at a used camera shop in Japan. I knew of its successor's cult status, and the price was right, so I decided to give it a shot. Unfortunately for the Klasse, I'd picked up a T2 not 2 months before. The Fuji didn't seem to compare. After taking only a few photos, I decided to put it down, and continue to use the T2 as my primary compact. But the camera has always intrigued me. With a class-leading fast aperture and close focus distance, I knew it could take wonderful photos. A few drawbacks had kept me away, but I decided to give it an honest shot. When I did, I was pleasantly surprised by the exposures, oftentimes spot on and balanced, faring better than most compact cameras. People often praise the 35 Ti for its meter, but the Klasse is as good, if not better in my opinion. The Klasse tends to expose more for the highlights, but it leaves enough information in the shadows that you can still get a good print or scan, with exposure options being full auto and aperture priority. The close focus and fast lens are an excellent combination, made better by the consistent exposures. 0.4 meters is pretty close, and I'm a bad judge of distances that short. I would recommend having something to measure the distance for best results. I don't think there's a discernible difference between f2.6 and f2.8 on a 38mm lens, but the Klasse does produce some beautiful bokeh. The bokeh is very smooth and not distracting, with a special characteristic. Instead of circular bokeh, the Klasse can produce triangular bokeh, similar to that of Zeiss's super speed cine lenses. Other compact cameras like the Olympus XA can also produce similarly shaped bokeh, I believe due to the shutter mechanics. But the triangle shape of the Klasse's bokeh is very defined and unique. Unfortunately, there is no manual setting for ISO. You can enable 0.5 or +1 exposure compensation, but it's a bit more time consuming than the T2. The build quality is nice. The camera itself is made out of a aluminum magnesium alloy. Nice and sturdy in the hand, but not quite as premium as the 35 Ti and the T2. In the automatic settings, the flash apparently only triggers when the exposure is under 1/45 of a second. The flash will then trigger, keeping the shutter speed at 1/45 of a second. Fuji says this is to maintain a steady hand and not have blurry photos. In my experience, the flash did not fire unnecessarily, and when it did fire, it still produced pleasing photos. This all seems to add up to a nice premium compact experience. But there's one drawback that made me put down the camera. The Klasse is the slowest focusing premium compact I've personally used. There's a significant lag between the pressing of the shutter, focusing of the lens, and taking of the picture. The manual focus isn't much better. It still takes as much time to focus manually as it does automatically. The only difference being it's accurate to where you want to focus. This shutter lag makes it difficult to take photos the way I like to photograph. If you half press the shutter, you can maintain the focus and instantly take a photo, but it's not ideal. I feel like other compacts, the 35 Ti and more specifically the T2, focus much faster even with similar mechanics. Because of the focusing issues and the lack of exposure controls, I never really used it in the way that I typically photograph, and so in the end I stuck with the T2, which suited my style much better. But those drawbacks can be an advantage for someone. The close focusing, fast lens, excellent exposure control, unique bokeh, and conservative flash could make this a great travel, snapshot, or portrait camera. It's still small and extremely light, very sharp, and has a lot of character. It's not necessarily the most premium compact camera out there. I feel like it kind of lies somewhere in between the lower end, like the XA, and the higher end, like the 35 Ti and T2. And I think the functionality and price really show that. I would definitely not recommend the camera for street photography, but if you want to travel extremely light with just one camera, or maybe one film camera, one digital, this is a great option. If you're a little bit patient and don't mind the shutter lag, I think you can make great images with this camera. Fuji definitely made amazing cameras at the end of the film era, and I think this is one of them.